My sister-in-law is planning a wedding at my house, and I'm not invited, but on her wedding day, the princess is shocked to see that I changed the locks and there will be no wedding. I'm 34 years old and have been following this sub for a long time. Lately, there's been something in my life I needed advice on. I've read many posts about sisters-in-law to see if anyone else has been in my situation and how they handled it. Well, I guess my situation is unique, and I could use some advice on it. It's about my sister-in-law. That's why I can't discuss this with my husband. You know, family complexities. So here's the thing. My 27-year-old sister-in-law is planning a wedding for the spring and wants to hold it at my house. Yes, that's right. Not to brag, but I have a 4-bedroom house with a pool and a large garden. She's engaged to an Irish guy, so his family and relatives would need a place to stay when they come for the wedding. We have a spacious living room and a large garden outside. She's planning an outdoor wedding in the garden, followed by a dinner in the living room. That's how she wants it to be. Now, the obvious question is, am I okay with this? Well, I don't know. That's why I'm here seeking advice. Let me give you some context. I've been married to my husband for 8 years. We met in college and dated for 4 or 5 years before getting married. He doesn't come from a wealthy family, but he's a hard-working, self-made man. My father-in-law worked as a day laborer, and my mother-in-law did odd jobs. My husband has a younger sister who has been living with my in-laws. Keep in mind, she's 27 and still doesn't work. Not only do they provide her with food and shelter, but they also cater to her extravagant demands. And when I say extravagant, I mean beyond their means. Unlike my husband, who completed his master's degree, my sister-in-law dropped out of college. Her parents didn't even insist she finish because she didn't need to be told anything. She's inspired by this new age influencer who says a degree doesn't make you rich or successful. I find it strange because I was raised completely differently. Although my parents are quite wealthy, they never gave us privileges. Yes, we went to a private school, call it luxury or whatever, but beyond that, my parents didn't do anything for my career. When my brother and I were in high school, Dad told us to earn a scholarship or take out a student loan. He wasn't going to pay for our college. We used to hate it and thought our dad was stingy. We studied hard and got scholarships. Now that I'm older, I realize the wisdom in his upbringing. It made us self-sufficient. Especially after seeing my sister-in-law, I'm convinced of how important a parent's role is in a person's life. When I got my first job right after college, I went wild with partying and vacations, but Dad sat me down and showed me some good properties. I was happy thinking he was finally letting go of some money from his tight grip, but that wasn't the case. He wanted me to buy the house myself. He paid the down payment and explained the importance of owning my own home, and the sooner the better. He advised me to rent out half of it to help with the mortgage. I own this house today, which I'm glad about, seeing housing prices now. I think if I hadn't bought it, I wouldn't have been able to afford such a spacious property at this price. If I have to talk about my relationship with my in-laws, it's been more or less okay. We don't see each other often. They live across town, and I lead a very busy life. I still have a decent bond with my mother-in-law. We talk once a week, but I just can't connect with my sister-in-law. I can't. We're polar opposites. She doesn't like me because, during our early interactions, I tried to convince her to finish her education and get a job. She thinks I'm jealous of her because her parents take care of her while mine abandoned me to live on my own. The worst part is that my in-laws say they're going through financial difficulties, but still support their 27-year-old daughter. My husband and I offered to help her get an office job, but neither she nor my in-laws showed any interest. She's lazy, no doubt about it, but my in-laws should have pushed her to work. Although they're happy to provide for her, there are a couple of reasons why my sister-in-law wants to get married at my house. One, of course, is the space. She could have the wedding, lunch, and dinner all in one place, and even her guests could stay without needing to book a hotel. Another reason is that she can't afford to rent a venue, and if it's not my house, she'd have to settle for a city hall wedding. She doesn't earn money, and my in-laws don't have a fortune to spend on her wedding. My husband doesn't want to weigh in because it's my house, and he wants me to make the decision regardless of what he thinks. That's my man, and that's why I love him so much. So, my problem boils down to this. Do you think I should let her use my house as her wedding venue? Update 1. The wedding is the day after tomorrow, and today I found out I'm not invited. The funny part, the wedding is at my house. Let me start from where I left off last time. Yes, I agreed to let her use my house for the wedding. I was definitely worried about it, but I eventually gave in. Now I regret my decision. I'm furious, so please forgive me if I just vent everything I feel. My sister-in-law is nothing but a woman who uses men for money in exchange for you know what. She's not even that pretty, and don't get me started on her lack of intelligence. But you know, once the lights go out, most men don't care about all that. She might be good at what she offers, which is why she was able to nail it. That's what she calls her fiancé, the nail. Not only is she superficial, but she's also a liar. I found out her Irish fiancé is quite well off. He works as a banker, and even his family is wealthy. So, to impress them, she lied and said my house was theirs. I knew about this lie for a while, but it didn't bother me because, at the end of the day, it didn't affect me. When her fiancé proposed, she came to me and practically begged me to let her use my house for the wedding. As if that wasn't enough, my in-laws came begging too. They said if I didn't agree, they might have to take out a loan to fund her wedding. I asked why she and her fiancé couldn't fund it. My in-laws said traditionally, the bride's parents pay for the wedding, and the Irish follow this tradition more than we do. I don't know how true that is, so please don't judge me for it. It's not my words. Plus, my sister-in-law had already bragged to her fiancé and his father-in-law about her big house that could host a wedding. Her stupidity made me laugh. I said, "What if I don't host the wedding at my house? I mean, I can do that, right? Don't you think she should have asked me first before committing to this with her fiancé?" My in-laws nodded and asked me to safeguard their reputation. I told them I would, but they should have done a better job raising their daughter. See, I don't sugarcoat my words, and maybe that's why they think I'm arrogant. They don't understand I say this for their own good. You know what happened next? They kept coming to my house until I agreed. At one point I thought, it's just 2 days, let's get it over with. Yes, some people asked in the last post if she offered to pay rent. No. All this happened 3 months ago when I made the original post. Fast forward to 2 days ago, my sister-in-law showed up with my in-laws and 2 other men. I was at work and saw this on the camera installed inside. It has a motion sensor. I called her and asked what was going on. She said those guys were wedding designers, here for a site visit to plan the wedding accordingly. I asked her to be careful with my things, and she assured me she would. After paying off my mortgage last year, I got rid of the tenants who occupied my 2 upstairs bedrooms. I took time off work to prepare 2 rooms for them and hired a cleaner to do the job. It's a huge house to clean all by myself. Today, my sister-in-law showed up at 6 a.m. while we were still sleeping. She was leaving for her bachelorette party in the next town, and came to check if everything had been prepared properly. She was pleased to see I had prepared 2 rooms for them and rented a larger dining table for tonight's dinner. Then she walks around the house saying, "Good, those 2 rooms are ready for my in-laws. Mom and Dad will take your room, and I'll take the room with a walk-in closet." Wow, I'm so excited to show them my big house with all this fancy stuff. I can't wait to see their shocked expressions when I give them the house. I was confused. I mean, where do we fit in? The rest of the conversation went like this. "Sorry, I'm confused. If your parents are taking our room, where are we going?" She replied, "Well, I don't know. You can go to your parents' house, or maybe check into a hotel for 2 days. You both earn well. I'm sure you can afford it." I responded, "But why do we have to move out of our own house?" And with a mocking tone, she said, "Because to them, it's my parents' house, remember? And it'd be really weird if a married brother and his wife lived with my parents." I felt dizzy after that conversation. Like, what the hell? So you're going to pretend this is your parents' house, and you live here like a princess? I was already pretty upset, put on a serious face, and asked, "So according to your fairy tale, where do we live in case your in-laws ask?" "Oh, they won't. I mean, how would they? You won't be here, right? And what about our stuff, our photos? Who would know it's your stuff? I'll say it's all mine. The only issue is the photos in your hallway. We'll have to take them down before they arrive." I sighed and asked, "So, even if I vacate the house to keep up your facade, we'd still see them at your wedding, right? What if they ask then?" I asked this sarcastically, but her responses left me stunned. No, there's a misunderstanding. You're not attending the wedding or the family dinner at all." I was like, what the hell? She continued, "I'm not sure how this happened, but I never invited you to the wedding. My parents sent you an invitation." I felt so stupid talking to her. I yelled my husband's name, who was sleeping peacefully. I shouted so loudly that he ran out. I screamed, "Did you know we weren't invited to the wedding?" It seemed his body was awake, but his mind was still asleep. "Whose wedding?" "Oh yeah, her wedding. We're not invited." "I mean, why?" I said, "Your sister said she didn't send us the invitation. So how could we assume we're invited? Let me get this straight. I really don't understand what's going on here." It took him a few minutes and some repetition to grasp what had just happened. He was horrified that we hadn't been invited to the wedding being held at our house. My sister-in-law said, "Well, if it bothers you that much, you can attend, and you can probably say your wife is sick and has to skip." I asked what her original reason was for justifying our absence. The woman had the audacity to laugh in my face and said, "Oh, you won't believe it. I told them my parents cut you off because you're too toxic." I was like, wow, what more can I expect from you? I stormed into my room without saying anything. It was pointless wasting time talking to her. My husband followed me and assured me it was still my decision if I wanted to withdraw my consent at this point. I was too angry to think clearly. I need to calm down to make a rational decision, which is why I sat down to update here, thinking it might help. And it did. I feel much lighter. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give in to the princess's demands. I don't know what to do now, but I'm definitely not leaving my house to play along with her web of lies. Whatever happens, I'll update this thread. You can count on me. Update 2. Hello, everyone. Thanks for engaging with my posts. Yes, you were all right in saying the spoiled princess lives in a world of delusions. First, let me address some common questions from the comments. How can my sister-in-law access my house in my absence? After I agreed to let her use it for the wedding, I gave her the spare key. The front porch, living room, garden, and pool area are all covered by cameras, so I felt okay sharing the spare key. Second, how is it possible that her fiancé believed her lies that the house was hers? Didn't he ever visit her place? I'm not sure. She's been dating him for less than a year. 2 weeks before the wedding, she brought him to my house for a tour while I was at work. After writing that update that day, I discussed my thoughts with my husband. Although he was on my side, saying it was my decision, he was worried that if I backed out, his sister's wedding would be canceled and his parents' reputation would be ruined. I said, "Let's talk to your parents then." We went to their house and told them about my sister-in-law's plan to exclude us from the wedding. Apparently, they already knew and seemed okay with it. My husband lost his composure and said, "You knew she was excluding us from her wedding, and you were okay with it?" My mother-in-law responded in a weak voice, "We thought you were okay with it too." Neither of you asked why she hadn't sent the invitation. At this point, I questioned if we were wrong to assume we were invited to the wedding because it was my house. My husband and I looked at each other in shock. My husband shouted at them, "Do you realize there won't be a wedding if she backs out of her decision? What if we tell the truth to her in-laws?" My mother-in-law panicked and begged us not to do such a thing. My father-in-law stepped in and politely asked if I'd be okay attending the wedding if my sister-in-law sent us the invitation now. I stayed silent and didn't respond because I was furious. My father-in-law asked my mother-in-law to call my sister-in-law and tell her to send us the invitation immediately and apologize. My mother-in-law hesitated to call her, but my father-in-law gave her a stern look. My mother-in-law called, trembling. My father-in-law told her to put the phone on speaker. My sister-in-law answered the call and scolded my mother-in-law for bothering her during her spa session. My mother-in-law told her it was urgent and that my father-in-law wanted her to invite me and my husband to the wedding. She got angry and said, "No way am I inviting that witch. She thinks she's too smart." My mother-in-law tried to stop her mid-conversation and whispered, "They're here with us." But the princess was too busy complaining. She said, "If she meets my in-laws, she'll outshine me. I want to look the prettiest on my wedding day. Plus, you know how she always talks about different things, jobs, careers, investments, and that stuff, blah, 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 to get everyone's attention. I don't want that at my wedding. Everyone's focus should be on me. If she's around, she'll make me look like a fool. So no, she's not allowed at my wedding." Then she hung up. I shouted back, "I make you sound stupid because you're stupid," and stormed out of the house. When my husband got up to leave, my in-laws asked him to calm me down and said they talked to my sister-in-law to get her to apologize. Apologize my ass. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law texted me, saying I should remove our portraits from the hallway and move out of the house after overseeing the preparations tomorrow. She said, "My fiancé will arrive at the venue with his family at 10 a.m., so get out before then. But make sure to leave my parents there before the wedding planners are left alone. I'll stay at my friend's house after the bachelorette party, then head straight to the salon from there and arrive at the venue as a bride." "Sure, Your Highness, I'll plan a perfect wedding for you." When we got home, it was late afternoon. I called a locksmith and changed the house's locks. Later that evening, my husband called my father-in-law and told him we wouldn't allow the wedding at our house, so they'd better find another venue. He tried calling my sister-in-law, but she was busy getting drunk at her bachelorette party. My father-in-law called back in a panic, asking what he should do. My husband suggested that if he wanted to save his reputation, he should call the guests and cancel the invitation with any suitable excuse because there was no way the wedding was happening on this date and at this location. The night was thrilling, just imagining the expressions on my sister-in-law's face when the truth came out. Around 6 a.m. on the day the wedding was supposed to start with the dinner, my doorbell rang. It was the wedding designer, here to begin the wedding preparations. I told him this was my house, and there would be no wedding here. He was confused and said my sister-in-law and her fiancé had booked it for that day. I told him to call them because my house was no longer available. An hour later, my sister-in-law's fiancé came knocking on my door. I answered, and he asked if my sister-in-law was home because she wasn't answering her phone. I told him no, she wasn't here because this isn't her house. He said there might be some confusion. I'm her fiancé, and we're having a wedding at this house today. I guess you're her sister-in-law. I saw your photos in the hallway the other day. I smiled and said, "You're right, I'm her sister-in-law. But there's more truth I'm going to tell you. Let's start with the basics. This is my house and I live here. My sister-in-law and my in-laws live across town in an apartment. By the way, congratulations on your wedding, but it's not happening here anymore because I changed my mind." I don't know what happened after that. Around 9 a.m., this princess came banging on my door. I didn't answer. She called my husband, asking what was going on, that I had kicked out the wedding designer. He told her our house wasn't available and she should find another venue for the wedding. She screamed and banged on my door, demanding we open it. I opened the window and shouted, "If you bang on my door again, you might end up in jail on your wedding day, if there even is one." She insulted us and called us names for ruining her life. She left after the neighbors, threatened to call the police. I blocked her number, but she bombarded my husband's phone with voicemails, calling him names for not standing up for his sister. I asked if he was upset. He said he was upset, but that she brought it on herself. She can't assume everything will be handed to her on a silver platter. She was ungrateful and took us for granted. She told her fiancé this was her house and planned the wedding here without even asking permission, on top of excluding us from the wedding and calling me a witch. What does she expect in return? My in-laws haven't taken it well. They blame me for tarnishing their reputation. This makes me question their value system because they were clearly okay with their daughter excluding us from the wedding despite it being held on my property. As for her wedding, it was canceled that day. My sister-in-law and my in-laws went to see them to ask them to wait a week so they could arrange another venue. I heard her fiancé called them liars in front of everyone and said he was canceling the wedding and would have to rethink the relationship. God knows what will happen now. I'm glad to be out of this drama. I have a life to live and a career to excel in. May God bless her and her lies. Update 3. It's been a couple of days since the date my sister-in-law's wedding was supposed to happen at my house, and as you know, it didn't happen here. It didn't happen anywhere else either, because at the end of the day, the groom decided to cancel everything after seeing his ex-fiancée's lies. I don't blame him. We're talking about someone who can go so far with lies, so we could expect more lies in the future if not now. Anyway, the important thing is everyone's reaction after all the plans fell apart, starting with my sister-in-law, who has been crying since this all happened. Obviously, she blames me for everything, which is ridiculous because I wasn't the one who lied to half the world. Her ex came by the house the other day and told me this while apologizing for everything. I told him he didn't need to worry because he had nothing to do with it. I even apologized to him because I should have told him about this earlier, though honestly, we didn't have a relationship or much contact before. I didn't even have his phone number or know his name to look him up on social media, but I felt bad for him and apologized. As for my in-laws, they keep calling my husband to badmouth me and him, saying he should have done something and not just let me dominate him. He's thinking about blocking them if this continues and no longer answers their calls because he's fed up with them. But that's between him and his parents, so I'm not getting involved. Update 4. A week has passed since my last update, and I was hoping that would be the last one because I don't have more time to waste on their nonsense. I had already done too much for her, but she had to show up at my house and cause a scene. It was Saturday morning, and I was at home having breakfast when she banged on the door. I knew it was her because the banging came with hysterical screaming. She sounded possessed, like in those horror movies. She wanted to hit me, according to what she said, for ruining her wedding and her relationship by being selfish and a witch. My husband wasn't home because he went to play tennis with his friend. She was screaming at the top of her lungs and banging on the door while I sipped my coffee. A neighbor heard everything and called the police. He also came to my door to make sure I was okay and told my sister-in-law the police were on their way. She finally left, but the funny part is she ran off like a thief or something because she doesn't have a car and had arrived by Uber. So, she didn't have time to order another one before the police arrived. I then opened the door and talked to my neighbor. When I finished with him, the police arrived, and I explained what happened, how she threatened to hit me, and my neighbor is a witness, plus the cameras. The police went to my in-laws' house to look for her. Now it's late, and my in-laws have called my husband to tell him what I did and yell some more, but my husband hung up and blocked them. I know many will be disappointed because we don't know what happened to my sister-in-law since my in-laws were the only ones who could tell us, but we both feel we've had enough of all of them. Whether she ends up in jail or not, we don't know. But at least we're done with that family.